All right. Well, I've been down so long that my mind can't get no rest. No, no. I've been down so long that my mind can't get no rest. No, no. This ain't easy, darling, 'cause the devil's on my trail. I've been running so long that my feet don't work no more. Oh yeah. I've been running so long that my feet don't work no more. Oh no. It ain't easy, darling, when the devil's on my trail. Oh yeah.
Welcome, everyone, to another edition of 6 Feet Apart with Sean and TJ. Filmed, as always, here at Felix E. Martin Jr. Hall in Greenville, Kentucky. And we're pleased to welcome back the Muhlenberg County Schools Superintendent, Robby Davis.
He was our very first.
Our very first, yes.
episode,
How long
really.
ago was that? A couple months ago?
Seems like forever.
Yes, it
Seems like
does.
forever. Beginning of this.
And the beginning of forever.
It's like
yeah.
11 episodes ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, welcome back.
Thank you.
I'm sure
Thanks
you've
for
had
having
nothing going on since you were here the last time.
me. Not a lot, but we can talk about a couple of things maybe.
There's lots of jobs in the world that I would not want, and yours has been at the top of the list for the last few months. So.
One of the symptoms of the pandemic is more gray hair. I can tell you that.
I was thinking his hair was black
My
when he
wife
was
has
here.
I know.
pointed that
first
out.
time.
So yeah,
Right.
Well, it's nice of her to point that out to you. And
she's good about
Make sure.
that.
make sure that it didn't slip past you. Well, I guess we just jump right into it. We're going to try and get this out quickly so the information
Sure.
is given to the community and to parents and families. So, the school board met this week and made the recommendation to start back virtually when we go back at the end of the month. Is that
Right.
We're
Right.
going back from there, and then we'll evaluate next month. Correct?
Yeah, I'll try to go through. Y'all keep me between the lines here as I try to explain a lot.
You can veer off however you need to.
But basically, that's what we did. We are going to go back virtually and reevaluate this in about 3 weeks. The next board meeting comes up about that time. So the goal would be to get kids back in person, give that option in person by September 21st. We looked at a lot of different things. We looked at going back 5 day was our goal. That is always going to be the goal.
Right.
The ultimate goal is get kids back in 5 days a week. Nothing can replace that. We understand. We did a survey, did lots of surveys, phone calls, reached about 4,000 parents with phone calls. I thank the teachers for that. I thank the parents for that. A lot of time spent getting their thoughts. And we surveyed the staff, got their thoughts. We had that previous survey about the online one about a month ago. Again, I lose track of time a little bit. So we've talked to a lot of folks and balanced a lot of things, talked to the health department. I talk to superintendents in other counties all the time and across the state because we're all in the same boat.
Yeah.
Right. So again, starting with the ultimate goal being 5 days, and that will always be the case. All right. Once we got those results back, what we took those and found out was we cannot get that many kids in classrooms. There'd be very few classrooms where they could social distance enough and take their mask off. And a lot of the comments we got was, that's a concern with kids wearing masks all day long. And I get that. Even when I go to a meeting, have to wear it for a couple of hours. I do it, but it's not ideal. So we were hoping to give kids a break from that. Well, the 5 day a week just won't allow that. So when we backed off that, we thought, all right, if we can't do that, the next thing you'd like to do is an A/B schedule, where they come in, and I'll make sure I get into this a little bit more later. But an A/B schedule allows for some positive things. You're getting kids in some. So we kind of looked at that, and that's where we probably hope that we're going to go on September 21st. It's probably going to go, ideally, this would go virtual, and then probably transfer to AB, and then as soon as we can, go to 5 days, give that option. But when we looked at the big picture, and here one thing I want to mention that a lot of people don't know is the PPE thing, personal protective equipment. That's a bit of a concern. We have ordered a lot. We've got a lot, and it's going to take a lot. And there's some still on back order. So one part of the puzzle is we think that'll be in by August 26th to keep us running, but it's been on back order for a while.
Right.
We're all kind of battling for the same stuff. And by that, I'm talking masks, which we're going to go through a lot now. Hopefully, parents will provide a lot of those for their kids, but we'll certainly have those on hand. Gloves, gowns, plexiglass dividers, sprayers for the buses, spray for the sprayers for the buses. There's just so many of those things that hand sanitizer, obviously, you can't have enough of that. Clorox wipes. So everybody knows how hard those are to get at Walmart and dollar
Yeah,
store.
right.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of a concern, and it's not for lack of trying. We've had orders in forever, and we're using those federal dollars to try to get that, but so is everybody else. So that's a bit of a concern. Certainly escalating numbers in the county and in the state. I want to talk about what a positive test means for us here in just a little bit. But right now, we'll just say in general, our numbers, unfortunately, have been escalating some over the last few weeks. We know that statewide, but certainly countywide. The potential that we're going to be shut down anyway. Governor Beshear is already backed up that start date. Some districts were going to start this week, and I think they backed that up to like the 17th or the 20th, something along those lines. And there's rumblings now that if things don't get better, that may be backed up again. So that creates all that uncertainty. We didn't really want to try to start AB, get the word out to the parents, try to get all that in, plan for that with our staff, our teachers. That would be very difficult to do. And then maybe a week before it starts, pull that out and know we're going to be all virtual.
Right.
So when you put all those things together, it felt wise to just kind of hit a pause button and let us start virtual, because I almost know this, or we think we know, that we're going to be all virtual at points throughout this, at least till Christmas. It feels that way. You have a flare up, you see what's happening with pro sports. You see what's happening in these different places. You have a flare up of cases, you got to shut down for a while. So if we can get better at the virtual, which we'll talk about later, what we're trying to do, get that down, and then hopefully things have calmed down, and hopefully the governor didn't shut us down, and hopefully our cases are dropping, and hopefully the PPE comes in, and all those things could very well happen, then I'm hopeful that by September 21st, we can start offering that in-person option.
So,
go
what
ahead.
happens if we do start having positive cases, or there's that flare up that you mentioned, and it's almost inevitable? Unfortunately, you feel like that could happen and will happen. Where do we go? What happens then?
You mean if we go back, or?
Yeah, if we're back into in-person classes and then positive test and
Right. I think there's going to be times, I think it's likely that we'll just be out for, the health department will have a huge say in this. But I think there's a pretty good chance we'll be down for either a 3-day thing or a week or 14 days, whatever. I think there's going to be times where we're going to be a little bit up and down this year. And is that ideal? Of course not. But that seems like a real possibility. I don't have any more inside information on that than you do, but if let's just talk about what a case could mean to us for just a second, because a lot of people don't realize, because people are all over the board on how they view this whole thing. It allows for so many different opinions. There's just so much gray area. Some folks with all these extra cases, they're like, okay, they look at deaths and they may say, well, the deaths aren't going up, and they're asymptomatic. I know people who are asymptomatic and they're testing positive. And I understand we can talk that and with a reasonable person, and I can understand that viewpoint. Others, they may be someone that's died from this, or they may have a situation where they have a totally different viewpoint on that spectrum, that no, it's we need to totally shut back down. There are those viewpoints out there that, and I have my viewpoints, but they don't matter in my job. My personal viewpoints don't matter. I've got to look at this professionally, and what folks may not understand is what a positive means to us, because none of that matters. When it comes to us and we say, TJ's tested positive, well, that's reported to the health department. They'll immediately, they'll contact TJ, and who all have you been around? And they go through this whole contact tracing thing. We don't do that. We may aid in that. We may help give some information. But that's through the health department. So you take a kid, let's say TJ plays a sport. He rode a bus in that morning, and he goes through 6 or 7 classes, or however it is. He goes through his classes. He goes to his practice after. Felt fine. For whatever reasons, another family member, whatever, he ended up getting tested like the next day, and he tests positive. Well, then once they go through all that, it's conceivable that several people that you've come in contact with are asked to quarantine for 14 days. Maybe that you've seen again where sporting teams, even around here, practices have been. We've been very fortunate. Our coaches have done a wonderful job, doing the whole pre-screening and all that. But still, it can happen. Maybe even the bus driver, maybe staff members. You could see there are cases where there could be so many people having a quarantine that we simply can't have shut down.
Yeah.
So in those cases, and again, it doesn't matter what I think about symptomatic or not, or escalating cases impacts our world in a big way. And as of right now, the last I heard, we have at least 15 staff members and kids who've tested positive right now in the county, and that's without us being together. So fortunately, we've dodged bullets as far as sports and other little things that we're doing, little controlled events that you think what that may be like if we're full blown in school. And it seems likely that that's going to happen, and we don't want to be scared and run from it and say, well, we got to hide forever. But we want to be prudent, and I want folks to understand what that truly will mean for us. So, to your question, Sean, I see us being up and down. It's almost like, to me, January with bad snow weather. It's what it feels like it may be. You go for a week, you have a problem, you deal with it, you clean, you get the okay from the health department, and you go again. So I think no matter when we go back, that's likely to happen. But I do want to assure folks, we're not plans not to go virtual forever. We want our kids back. We totally understand as good as we can get it virtual. We'll talk about that in a minute if we get time.
Yeah, no, we need to.
It's not the
we got
same.
time.
It's not the same as in person. We totally understand that. That's the goal.
You mentioned the health department several times, and we're thankful for Kathy and her staff. And
Absolutely.
what the public health department has done here in the county. It's not like we're on an island here. We're getting information from lots of different places and direction from lots of places, and it's
Right.
not an isolated thing.
Right.
That sometimes we feel like, well, we're the only ones making this decision, or the only ones this is impacting, but it's worldwide. And so we've seen examples in other areas of people going back and starting to go back in all these tests and testing positive, and the impact it's had. So it's sort of good to not be the first one out of the gate, I think, and to be able to sort of engage it from let other people be the guinea pig, if you will, as far as going back and getting back in the classroom. So I think it's wise.
Right.
And people are going to grumble, I think, regardless of what you do. But I appreciate the thoughtfulness that has gone into it. I know that's not been an easy decision.
It's not, and reasonable people can disagree. I've got friends who could say, I think you should have started AB and tried to do that, and that's not unreasonable. This wasn't an easy decision. We did take a lot of different things and put into this. It does feel like a reasonable move. I didn't want to commit to 9 weeks. A lot of districts that are starting virtual, and they're growing all the time. Some went full first semester. Some went 9 weeks. A lot went to fall break. Fall break is about 5 weeks in. It's not 9 weeks anymore because we're starting later. That was a consideration. But as I was kind of talking with folks and battling through that, I thought, fall break, even though that's a nice cutoff, you don't have to wait until then. So the 3-week thing with the board meeting coming up, that feels like we can really focus on that virtual part and try to get that in place and better, and get parents on board. We can talk about the Chromebooks and Wi-Fi maybe in just a minute. We can work on that, because we almost know we're going to have to go back to that at some point. We can make that better. We can reevaluate. There's no need to wait longer to reevaluate. Let's just leave our options open. So again, the goal would be get back in September 21st with an AB option is the way that would look. And we haven't explained that well enough. That's something I want to do today. We're working on a flyer to get out so parents will understand, what does AB mean. Now, one thing that I can't get around, that I can't don't know how to fix is the child care problem. I mean, that's an issue. I don't want to gloss over it. I don't want to pretend it's not. I think back when I was a teacher and Gretchen was a teacher, and we used grandmas. They watched our kids, and now that probably wouldn't happen because we're not going to go around grandma.
Right.
So I understand that child care is a problem, and I just I the only thing that fixes that is getting back in 5-day option where they can send their kids every day. And I don't mean they're using it as child care, but it is. We're watching their
Well,
kids.
it's a normal routine. That's our
Right.
life, and that's what we've grown accustomed to.
Right. And so I don't want to pretend that doesn't factor in, and that worries me and that bothers me. And for our staff as well as the community, you're just trying to balance all these things, because if you do that, then you probably are having to wear a mask all day long, and it causes transportation problems with 5 days. Trying to get that many kids on a bus, that's another concern. And guidance changed on that. I sit through so many virtual meetings a week now, and you're trying to keep up with the latest guidance and get on the same page and what can we do and what can we not do. The first thing we heard with buses was you can get 8 on a bus. How are we going to get kids to school 8 on a bus?
Yeah.
And so that has changed now, where if you wear masks, it looks like we can do more. But the fact is, if you're bringing in more, that just crams everybody together, and that's not as ideal as you'd like it to be. So that's why we're going to probably look A/B when we go back to cut those numbers, kind of cut them in half. And again, hopefully we can do like we're doing here. And if it was not the case, we would all be wearing masks and closer together this entire time. So we won't be able to provide kids the opportunity to take that mask off safely, following the guidelines, when the time comes.
So there was a plan presented to the board meeting that we to the board at the board meeting this week that we referred to, which sort of was all encompassing the different aspects of the year, the phases of introduction back into the classroom, whatever phase
Right.
that takes for a while. And so it's sort of divided up into different sections. You want to talk about that a little more? And
Sure, and I'll tell them where they can take a look at that if they'd
Yeah.
like to. Julie Penley, she did a good job presenting that to the board. She kind of went through it step by step. And basically, that's the overall plan. That's the big plan, and we're trying to work under that umbrella. I wish we could have a plan that was very simple. If this happens, then we'll do this. In
Right.
some cases, you can, but in some cases, there's just then there's several other things you got to work through that. But basically, we're set it up like a red light, yellow light, green light. Green light's where we want to be. Green light's where we were last year. Everything's running. Sports full bore. We're all in. No issues. Yellow is kind of broad. Yellow is when you got several cases. You're basically where we are now. There's a lot of things there that you can look into that on the yellow, but you can still operate, and we can still do some things. Red is when the cases are rising and or at least remaining very escalated, and that's when you're just shutting it down and you're going all virtual for sure. Inside the yellow zone, you've got the option of hybrids where you could be 5-day option, you could have your AB option, you could be all virtual inside this broad yellow zone. I see us right now with at least escalated cases, if not escalating cases. We're on the dark end of yellow, if that's the thing.
Right.
I guess orange down here. So that's why we're kind of starting the way we are. But I won't try to go through all that. I'll try to talk some highlights. But if somebody really wants to know what that plan looks like, the resource is, I think it'll go to our website, and there's a link there, and you can watch it. Probably last that my comments at the end. I'm guessing 45 minutes or so. I'm not sure.
So the information is out there. It's available. We
Yeah.
certainly encourage people to go to the district website and seek that out, and that way they get a better understanding of it, because it can be overwhelming when you hear from so many different sources.
It is.
Go directly to the source, and
I can only imagine. I kind of live in this world. Seems like 24/7 now since March, trying to decide on and work through all this, and it's still tough. It's still confusing on some things, and then so for someone who doesn't do this every day, we got to try to understand. They need to try to give us a clear explanation
Right.
as we can to them, and not assume anything. Because to put that plan together, I mean, we didn't just do it. Hey, let's just do it tonight. Let's do that today. That took We've looked at several other plans, talked to the health department several times. A lot of things went into that. But you want to give yourself a little leeway because it won't go exactly like you want it to go. It's never going to be clear. So we're basically, again, that's the umbrella. Red, green, yellow, felt. Hey, we all know what that means. So that seemed like a wise way to go about it. But yes, if somebody wants to go and take some time, she goes through that step by step.
Well, thanks, Julie, for guiding us through that. I'm sure it's very detailed and informative. So we start back virtual there for a few weeks and reevaluate. What can people expect? What can kids expect, and what can their families expect them to be doing virtually? There will be some assistance available, and Chromebooks is a word that's been thrown around a lot. People maybe not sure about what's going on with that. Can you explain what that process is going to be?
Sure. Let's back up to the spring with NTI, and we found out 2 days ahead of time we were closing, and we didn't get to go back. So that was obviously not ideal for parents, for staff, for kids, for any of that. And so what happened then? I'm proud of everyone's effort. I really am. We tried. We did the best we could given what we had, but we learned some things. So how is it going to be different this time being virtual versus what we had in the spring? One thing we got some federal dollars to help us try to fix that, try to help with that. One of the things we decided to do was to get a Chromebook for each student. Now, we initially went 3 through 12, and we were having trouble with having enough money to go K through 2, and we kind of debated, can K through 2, can those kids do that? They're going to certainly have to have some parental help and all. And Felix Martin Foundation, I talked to Alyssa Manning, offered to say, hey, if we'll help with the K through 2 if the other funding doesn't come through. I don't want to get into all the funding because it's confusing and all this, but basically FEMA is an option for us, we think. So we're putting in an order to FEMA, and if they come through, then it allows us to do other options. The problem is you don't know if you're going to be approved for a bit, so you don't want to overextend, and then you don't have enough funds. So we're trying to balance all that to maximize for our kids. Bottom line is, though, we do now have Chromebooks for all kids K through 12. Now, we've got to get them to them. We've got to find a way to get them to them, and they'll have to sign an agreement. Obviously, this is for their use during, school time and all this. So we're working on that. Soft openings. I could throw this in now. Each school is having like an orientation. We're calling a soft opening. They can't bring everybody in like we did in the past. We can't just open up. So they're working right now. They'll be out very soon where you can bring in small groups. Health departments will take a look at it, okay it, and we can talk to them about different things. And certainly one of the things will be Chromebooks and how a Chromebook works. I'd have to be shown. I'm not that guy. You guys would have no problem. I'm the one, all right, you show me how to do it, and I can do it. They're going to work on that. So I encourage folks, if they can, to get to those soft openings. Not everyone can. We understand that. So we're going to have to figure out how do we, you may have to come pick it up on a certain day.
And as far as using them, I mean, we can offer our services here. We can film a presentation here that we can put out on the district website to give parents and kids a heads up on this is what you got to go through to get it set up or what they're looking at.
Maybe get Chad Wells in or a teacher
Yep.
or both and kind of show how this will work because honestly, obviously, some of our teachers need training as well. And that's where I'm hoping this first 3 weeks, and they actually report on August 12th. They report next week. They'll spend a lot of time trying to figure out, how to maximize the use of those Chromebooks. Can we do Zoom meetings now with kids? But that would be ideal. Can we work that in? And how many kids could get on at a certain time? And can they record lessons? Are there apps within Google that I've been told there are that are very useful? Yeah, I don't know for sure, Sean. I've been told there are. We're going to try to get better on our end. How do we deliver instruction, basically distance learning, knowing it's not the same, but we want it to be better than it was. And we'll need cooperation from our kids. We'll need cooperation from our parents and guardians because it can't be. Last year, we really tried to work with our kids based on participation because knowing it just wasn't ideal at all. It has to get back to achievement being a big part of this too because we're not doing kids right if we leave them behind. So we need to have expectations. We're raising them for ourselves. We need to raise the expectations for our kids as well. So that's what we're thinking with Chromebooks. Is that the full answer? Is that going to make everything great? No, but it's another tool. It's a tool. It's a conduit for us to get more information to them, and all on the same platform, all using the same thing. So I am excited about it. I'm excited about the potential of it, but it's going to take a lot of work to get to where we want to go. But we're working on that now.
Now, there's some places in the county that are not very accessible to Wi-Fi and internet. Is there a plan for that as well?
We're working on it. That's huge, TJ.
Yeah.
That is because if I give you a car and you don't have gas,
Right.
it's cool, but it really doesn't help a lot.
Right.
So what we've already done, and thanks to Chad Wells and his guys to help him with this, he's helped with all of this technology stuff. That tech department's pretty amazing.
Yes,
We've
Yeah.
added Wi-Fi access points, hotspots to each school. So let's just say there are recorded lessons or there is a Zoom meeting and they don't want their child in school. They're not comfortable with that. If they can get to a parking lot zone and we'll have spots out there, they can use our Wi-Fi. That's not ideal for everybody. That helps. It's better. It's wise, I think, to do that. But I understand for some of our folks that's still not the answer. They don't have a vehicle there or both are working during that time. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you everything fits perfectly and we got a perfect plan because no matter what we do, it feels like, well, what about this kid? And we're trying to figure out how to serve each and every kid, and that's just not simple when you're not in school. But what we're looking at, and Eric Blessinger is through FEMA. We're really trying to figure out how to make this work. Can we get now? Anybody that knows me, hearing me talk technology, they're already smiling. So I'm gonna do the best I can. But MiFi's apparently are devices that will help a family have Wi-Fi access. That's more going into the home. So we're looking at, we talked to each of our Friskies and our folks that are school. How many do you think that are out there that may need that don't have it? And so we can try to get these devices to them. So now in your home, TJ, if you didn't have access before, I can get this to you, and now you can tune in during the day. You can jump in. You don't have to go to a school. So we're working on where's our best deal with that? Is it AT&T? Is it Bluegrass? Eric's doing those calls to see, or what's this actually going to cost us? We don't have general fund dollars for this. Our
Right, yeah.
district, we just don't have a lot of extra out there. So do we have federal dollars to help us do this? So we kind of think so. Again, FEMA is a key, but again, this is where Felix Martin has said, "Hey," and I'm so happy with this. If you don't have to use our money to buy Chromebooks for K through 2. You don't have to do that. If you can find other dollars for that, use our money for Wi-Fi access, which our county needs. I had no idea how big a need it was in this county until we go through this. So our goal is to try to provide, if you're someone who doesn't have it, to try to provide you this. Now, again, got to get it to you. We got to figure out how to communicate that. Got to figure out who truly needs it. We're working on all that. That's all in the process now. But the big plan, if it goes like we hope, and again, those dollars aren't 100% secured yet, then we can give every student a Chromebook, and for most homes, make sure they've got Wi-Fi access to do the cool things we hope we're figuring out how to do.
Still, to me, sounds like a cool opportunity for Comcast or Xfinity, AT&T, or Bluegrass to kind of jump in there and say, "Hey, we were going to provide, X amount of data to the school system for nothing for marketing."
Well, it would be a
That was subtle.
I mean,
I like
yeah.
how you just threw
Just-
it in there.
Yeah.
Come on, guys.
We could do that again at the end if you'd like.
Right.
I wouldn't mind saying that one more time.
I mean, they're huge corporations.
It's not going that smoothly yet.
I'm sure it's not.
I'm hoping we do get to that point. Again, that's the ultimate goal. I don't want to promise that. I don't want to say anything on here that I can't back up for sure. So I want to be clear that that's what we're shooting for. And if we can do that, again, still not as good as in person, but much better where we were than where we were in the spring because we learned. Our staff wants to serve our kids. We love our kids. That's why we're doing this.
Yeah.
And it's discouraging to them and to others when you hear something on Facebook, they don't care, they don't this. We may not make all the right decisions. And I can understand disagreeing with me. My wife does it pretty much daily. So I understand that. But our hearts and our minds and our efforts, we're on the same page. We want to keep our kids safe. That's got to be number one. And from my point of view, keep the staff safe. All that figures into because we've got elderly staff, we've got people even older than me in our system, and we want to keep them safe. That's part of this as they come back and you come back with kids. It's a little nerve wracking for some because our staff looks at this differently, just like the general public does. Some will say, "Hey, it's no big deal. I'm good." Some will say, "Hey, I've got a lot of problems. I got an elderly mother who's sick. I've got."
Right.
Those things weigh on you as you try to make the right decisions for this. So I just need the public to know, if nothing else, our we're doing this for all the right reasons. We think we are. If you disagree, fair enough. You may even have a good point. I can learn from what you're saying sometimes. I need to listen.
Well, I think the best point you made was you've got to look at it from a professional standpoint and what matters most to everybody, not your own personal feelings.
Right.
I mean, it's a difficult decision. It's a difficult time for everybody. So
Well, the thing is, guys, I've been a parent of someone of two kids in the system. I've been a student of the system long, long ago. I've been a community member for over 50 years. I'm a grandparent of two in the system now. I'm an uncle of one in the system now. I've been a principal. I've been a teacher. All the
Coach.
different roles, I try to take those into account as you think, how is that affecting parents?
Right.
How is this decision affecting community members, if it does? Or even, if you're a business owner, you may have a different look at this whole thing. You try to understand different viewpoints and take that all in. And since I've been around forever and kind of been all these roles, I try, how would that affect me? And so that's why childcare bothers me. I understand that would have been difficult for us. But again, you're weighing that with the safety and then the mask thing and all that. You're trying to just take all that information and make the best. At the end of the day, it's a bit of a judgment call. It just is, and that lands on my shoulders. Now, I had a lot of folks that I talked to and look at survey, and certainly the board ultimately approves it. But when you're sitting there, it's just like one morning, I'm like, well, why do we have to go to? We don't have to go to fall break. We don't have to do 9 weeks. The whole beginning of the year is what kind of is worrying me is cases are doing this. But we just take a pause and then reassess it soon rather than waiting till later. So it seems reasonable to me, although again, I could understand some different viewpoints out there. I just wanted to make sure that I say with all the conviction that I can, when we meet and we talk, it's about kids.
Yeah.
And it's about how can we keep them from falling behind and keep them safe and get them the mental health help that they need. I know these kids being, holed up is hard. It's hard on adults. We're all on edge anymore. You can't quite go to church the same. You can't quite go to Walmart the same. Can't visit mom the same. Everything's just a little different now. So we're all kind of running on edge. And I understand the community's in the same place too.
So virtually 3 weeks of virtual online learning is the plan right now, and then reassessing through that 3 week time what the numbers look
Right.
like and what the curve looks like, right?
Right.
And then from there, it's A/B schedule.
Yep.
Is the plan right now?
And now we've heard the term AB, and I know people
Right.
have seen it
Right.
posted and things like that. Can you explain that a little more in
Yeah,
depth?
there's multiple versions of that out there. And I'll be honest, when it first came out, I was not a fan. I thought, we were holding on to 5 days as long as we could. And AB is basically doing this. You're taking, all right, you'll still have the virtual option. Let me make sure I say that. No matter what we do indefinitely this year, parents who are nervous or stressed, I'm not trying to judge how you feel. You
Right.
feel how you feel. I see no end to a virtual option as of now, unless it just goes away and we go back to green and come on back. We're good.
Right.
So folks who are out there, I need to be clear, that option will be available regardless. So AB, again, you're going to go by household is the way I think is the best way to do it, because if you just go by, go by last name or whatever, maybe there's marriages and different, kids in the same household may have different last names. You don't want to split households, because if we do an AB thing, everybody in a household needs to be on the same schedule. I don't need
Right.
some.
Yeah.
That would not be good for parents. Some going here and some going there. That's
Right.
not ideal, because often part of the child care is the older one taking care of the younger. So some are doing it. Some are going every other day. Some are doing a Monday, Thursday, Tuesday, Friday. Most are doing what I think we are going to be doing, which would you'd have one group come in on Monday and Tuesday. Everybody's off Wednesday. Teachers are planning. They're doing whatever they got to do because doing both is not going to be easy for staff. But in for deep cleaning. That's an ideal day. All right, that group's gone. Now let's clean, and then the next group comes in on Thursday and Friday. So basically, you're taking half your kids that were going to come, and you're bringing them in 2 days a week, each of them 2 days a week. Now, the pluses of that is you can likely now social distance in a classroom. Now we've got a calculator we go by that's out there too, where and it's almost a math problem. How can you keep kids 6 feet away from each other and maximize your space in a classroom? It looks like that if we do it that way, and again, parents will have the option to choose that or not, and we don't know how many will choose that for sure yet. We're going to have to check and ask soon if when we go back, which would you choose? But it looks like there'd be the option then for in many classrooms while the teacher is teaching, they're at least 6 feet away and they can take that mask. Do they have to take the mask off? No. But they would have that option so they don't have to wear it all day. So that's a huge plus. Transportation, huge plus. You don't have near as many kids on a bus. So obviously it's safer. Feeding is a huge plus because that's another problem. You got to bring kids through and feed them. And you can't eat with the mask on. So we're trying to work through the logistics of that. So AB offers smaller groups and still getting them in school. Is it perfect? Is it 5 days? No. Is it where we want to be eventually? No. But it is an option that allows different things to work. What would they be doing the off days? You know, the teacher, that's what we're working on. That's what's coming up. All this is giving us a little more time to get our act together on what an AB would look like because teachers have never done an AB either. Because you think now, as a teacher, you're teaching your kids in class, and then you've also got 3 days if they're not in class that you got to work with them then too. So how are you going to work that out? Do you have one teacher that's in charge of virtual, and the others do the classes, or some kind of hybrid version of that? We've been talking that, and we'll continue to talk that. But that's something we're still working on. So that's the positives of AB. You do get them in, and parents, if you're worried about will my household be together, absolutely, that's our goal to work where your household comes either Monday and Tuesday or Thursday and Friday.
Regardless if one's in kindergarten and the other one's a senior.
That's yes,
Yeah.
yes. We absolutely want to do that for our parents. That helps with child care. And all.
Yeah.
A negative of AB is why I wanted to stay 5 days as long as I possibly could. I held on to that. Is it still produces some child care issues? You know, because they're there 2 days, but then you still have to have 3 days you're worried about. So a lot of districts, a lot of other superintendents, we talked about this a lot. We held off of the AB, try not to go there because of that. Or that's one of the reasons I'll say. There are other reasons, but that's one of the reasons we wanted to do the 5 days. So again, you've heard what I've said today. You take all these things and try to balance them.
Yeah.
And that's why it feels like virtual and then probably transition to AB and then hopefully the 5 days. Now, we'll be asking parents before long, do they prefer, once we go back, no promise of when that will be, the goal September 21st, would you want your child to be in AB, sign them up for that so we can start the grouping, or would you want to start virtual? And a question I get a lot is, can we go back and forth? How's that work? We put a lot of thought into that. Some districts are saying if you start virtual, you stay for a semester. Or if you start virtual, you stay for 9 weeks. And that one made a little more sense to us. So let's talk. There's two different things here going on. What if you start virtual? For whatever reason, things get better and you're like, hey, it seems to be going well. I want in. My child wants back in. We're going to ask that you do that at the beginning of a 9-week grading period. So if you start virtual, you can jump back in at any 9-week grading period you want. So let's just hope we get back in on September 21st. And you've made this choice, TJ. You say, hey, my kids are starting virtual. And we do that for 2 or 3 weeks. And you're like, hey, things seem to be going well. I want them back in. You could do that at the beginning of the next 9 weeks. Just give us, we'll get a date out, but like a week notice, because it changes staffing.
Yeah.
It changes transportation. It changes feeding. When they come back, it makes things. It's not just they pop back in and all
Right.
the same. There's a lot of logistics behind that. Now, the other way, if you start in person, you say, all right, I'm going to come back. I want to do AB. I'm good with this. At any point, you can drop out to virtual. And we thought that was fair because I don't know what's going on in your life. I don't know. Maybe everything's fine, but now all of a sudden, TJ, you're sick. You got pneumonia or something. And I can't take a chance on my kid possibly coming home with something. You're like, now I've changed the way I feel about that. You can go from being in school, drop to virtual whenever. You can do that over and say, hey, I need out. And we'll make that's an easier adjustment for us. And we think that's right for our families. So going one way is easier. Going from virtual, coming back in.
Use the 9 weeks as a start stop point there.
I think
Yeah.
That's
that makes
fair.
sense, and
Yeah.
it's
It does.
as agreeable and accessible as you can really be with that. And I think families will appreciate if something changes, and they want to bring them back home. They can
Right.
do that without having to wait.
And I'd say there'll be cases where that probably will happen. And that's the whole AB thing. We're working on a flyer now to put information out so parents can take a look at that and make an informed decision on what I want my child to do. And these soft openings that I've talked about already, that's something that will be discussed then as well. So we'll be asking parents. I want them thinking now because we'll be asking. We can't wait until September 15th. And what do you want to do? We've got to get some things in the computer right and all this stuff lined up. Classes split, so teachers can start having groups. So we're going to be asking relatively soon, which would you choose? But again, first we've got to get information to them. And this is with the hope that it happens September 21st. Now, guys, if we get to September 15th or whatever that date may be, and our cases are going up, and we've seen that it's still not wise to go back. Could that happen? Yes. I've had some out there would say, well, you're starting virtual, you'll never get out of it. I can't say that that's not the case. I can say that's not the intent. Our goal is to get out of it September 21st, and if it's not then, I would think the next thing would be, all right, let's look after fall break. We don't want to just I don't want to shut down for a 9-week period or something. I want to hold out hope where we can revisit, but we're going to have to get things in place. So we're going to have to ask parents, all right, which would you choose? So when we go, you'll know which one you want. Knowing that some may say, again, you may say in a couple of weeks, well, if we go right now, I would say AB. And then before it happens, you're going to call and say, listen, I can't. We got to back out and do the virtual thing. So we know some logistics here are not going to be perfect. Again, we don't have that pandemic handbook that I wish I could. We're kind of creating things here as
Right.
we go.
Yeah.
But this seems about as reasonable as we can get, and we're trying to get the information out there in a timely manner. So that's where we are with the AB. So anything else, guys, you can think of, I need to try to explain better on that.
Well, again, the decision to go back into in person for the AB, it's not just the district that's making that decision. I mean,
No.
you're taking advisement from health department and
The
governor's
governor,
office
our
and-
commissioner,
Other superintendents and other districts.
there's a lot of things that go into this. I told my wife the other day I never thought I'd miss the simplicity of a snow day.
Right.
Because snow days used to wreck my world. You get up at 3:30 in the morning and it may or may not snow. It's a little slick. It's not. You're like stressing over one kid gets in a ditch. I can't have that. And that was absolutely insane trying to do that, several times a winter. I dreaded that. Yeah. I hate looking at forecasts. Just give me clear. And now it's like, wow, that seemed pretty simple compared to what we're dealing with now. I will say, since we are an NTI virtual district, we do have that in place. So if I suspect just because we have a pandemic, snow won't stop and ice won't stop. So during the winter, if we're still under, the same situation we are, but if we have a snow day, we can go to a virtual day, which would be kind of nice. We haven't done that in the past. Now that will be one of those. We're still going to school. It doesn't count as a missed day. So that's where we have some certainty by starting later in August, because August 26th is still the start date. It's just virtual, and we're still going to be getting out in May. And we're relatively confident that's going to happen this year. Again, because snow days, we'll make virtual days and we can teach. We got Chromebooks now. We've got Wi-Fi access and all that now. So there are some positives that'll come out of this. We'll learn some things and we'll be better prepared for, maybe even the flu. We've got sprayers for buses now, and our couple are still we're waiting on, but we're going to have sprayers for buses, and we'll know we can spray those down between routes, and like we're going to do now, we can do that for flu. So some things we're doing now will work later, just in less stressful times.
Right.
I'm hoping.
Yeah, give you some more options in the future. I know is there discussion about possibly letting some special education kids come back a little bit earlier because they thrive and they do better in that routine
Right.
with those teachers that are they're near and dear to my heart. I know that.
That's a good question. I'm glad you brought that up. I was supposed to, and I've forgotten that. Yes, this is not a hard close like it was in the spring. This is, we think, bringing all these back at one time right now is not a wise move. Right. It's small groups, just like the soft openings. Those groups, we're going to bring them in. We may bring in that whoever comes in for the soft openings, we may do that again 2 weeks into the year and bring those small control groups that can spread out and do their thing with the health department's blessing. And special education students may fall under that. Maybe mental health needs. Maybe you need to see a counselor. You need, there are those kids that maybe we can get in. Now, some of them we can still do one-on-one with, kind of a FaceTime kind of thing. But we want to bring some of those in. And I talked to principals yesterday. We met for 2.5 hours. And we talked about that. What type of groups? Maybe you can bring in a small group of kindergartners and work with them. 6th graders, kindergartners, 9th graders, all those transition kids. It's harder when they do come back without having the typical orientations. They don't know the way around the school, and it's already intimidating. So maybe we can get those small groups in. They're talking about that now. They're working on the logistics of that. And then how do we do busing for that? So it's not a simple thing, but absolutely, TJ, I'm hoping we can get either individual kids in or small groups with a very controlled environment in to look at them eye to eye and answer questions. The Google Chromebooks go through that. Maybe the MiFis, if we can get to that, maybe that's a good time for that during these soft openings. So that's a good question. Absolutely, we want to get some of those special need at-risk kids in. They're probably their priority, but maybe even a little more than that. Maybe even some small classes at a time, to try to get them some comfort. Just see them. We just want to see them.
Right. Yeah.
They make us laugh. We need that right now. So
yeah.
We need them.
Yeah.
I promise you that. We want them.
So when we bring them in, it's not going to be the situation where you just open the door and everybody comes piling in. And so, we're still following guidelines and temperature checks and all those things.
Yeah, I can talk through that. That's a good point. Something that's going to happen indefinitely right now. Each staff member, each student who comes in will have you guys now, and I've already done it this morning. You have your temperature taken. So we have the handheld, temperature taken. So if you have 100.4 or higher, you won't be coming in the building. And that'll be done in many cases before they get on the bus. Now, the problem is we don't have monitors on each bus, about half of them. So we're still working out the logistics. So will it be before they get on the bus, which is ideal, or will it be before they come in the school? At which point they've already been on the bus, but at least they're not into the school. So we're working on that. The ones with monitors, I feel that's safe. They can do it. The ones without monitors, maybe some back roads where there's not traffic, maybe we can do, we're still working through that. But if you're sitting over a hill at a stop on a bus, I don't want the driver having to do this. So we're working through when that happens. But each student will have their temperature taken. Each staff member will have their temperature taken and fill out a checklist like I do every day. Have you had an unexplained cough? Do you have this?
Right.
And then so that will happen every day. We know we will have temperature checks every day. We know masks will be worn coming in every time. That will not change indefinitely. Again, the only thing that could change with the mask is if you're in a classroom. Anytime you're changing classes, you're going to have a mask on. Anytime you can be coming in contact with someone else, you'll be wearing a mask. But if you're sitting 6 feet apart, maybe you can take the mask off. But those things will be in place, TJ and Sean, indefinitely. And that's hopefully that gives some comfort to parents. You know, I've had a question. Well, sometimes they're asymptomatic. That's true. That's just true. And there's no perfect answer to that. Nurses are at each school. We are very blessed to have our nurses. They are awesome. So if somebody is on site, if a child is exhibiting symptoms after they get to school, there's a place to take and isolate them as we reach their parents and all that. So, you know, all the reasonable precautions are in place. Can I ever promise a parent we won't have a case? You know,
No.
I'd be foolish to try to say that. I think there's almost certainly we will have cases at some time, and at that time we'll deal with them as best we can. We'll go we'll go through the health department and what's a wise decision. We do have the option this year. I don't know that I want to do it, but maybe need to shut down one school. We've never had that in the past, so it's conceivable that Bremen has an outbreak and it's not seen elsewhere where I can continue running elsewhere and
Oh, really?
shut down Bremen
Okay.
for a week or whatever. And that creates some other issues, but that's possible this year.
Having the virtual and the NTI days option really does give you a little more flexibility than we've had in the past in terms of individual schools, for example, or snow days. I guess, of course, kids felt like they've been on a snow day since March, so
Yeah, yeah.
we'll have to say goodbye to those for a bit.
Well, there's just so many things that we have to follow, and so we have so many bosses, kind of, and that's a new rule that is actually working in our favor. But you know, our commissioner, our governor, our health department, state and local, you know, all these entities we're in contact with constantly, and they give you these kind of here's your road. You got to stay inside these lanes, and then sometimes a week later, your road's here,
Yeah.
and you've got to make adjustments. So I'm I'm confident that some of the things I'm saying today and trying to be as clear as I can to parents, some of these things are likely to change. Some of them may be we find better ways, and some of them may be we've got different guidance that tells us differently. But it was important for me today to at least say too what a positive test means to us because you know until they redefine what a positive means, until they change that, hey, a positive is not as impactful as it once was or whatever, it's still going to affect us that way. It's still going to be, all right, here it is. And, you know, you kind of cross your fingers and like, I hope, you know, when they start checking were they close to this one at any extended period of time? Did they ride a bus? You know, all these kind of things, you know, you hope it doesn't become a big group have to be quarantined. But I do anticipate that'll happen. And you know what? We'll deal with it as best we can. We'll try to keep our folks safe. We'll try to make decisions. And I will typically err on the side uh, of safety, you know, but at the same time, like with a snow day, you know, you want to err on the side of safety, but you have to go to school some.
Right.
You know, if like the 20% chance of snow, if you err on the side of safety, well, you stay home. You try to make the best judgment call you can, having safety being the primary factor, but by golly, you want them in school. So that's where we're going to be, I feel like, a lot, making those calls. And there's going to be room for disagreement. I ask our parents for patience. I ask our parents for the benefit of the doubt. Now, it's hard to do when it's your child and you've got strong beliefs and you're just tired of everything. We're just all frustrated. But our teachers are going to do, and I say teachers because they're the next ones coming under the gun. Our transportation department's been out all summer delivering food. Our food service has been out all summer delivering food. And they've had help from classified, certified teachers have been there, principals have been there, loading buses, you know, all summer long. Now, as we get into instruction, the teachers are going to feel the stress because they care, not because they want to be out or they want to take care of these kids, and it's hard to do given the environment we're in. Best case scenario, we have about half our kids in school. Best case scenario, because about half, I don't know, 30, 40, or 50% are going to keep their kids home. That's what our surveys are saying until they're more comfortable. We got to take care of them. So trying to do both I know it's stressful, and it's stressful because we want to do it well. And I feel for our staff on trying to do that. That's why I asked. It's so much easier to do when you get a little encouragement and a little support. So that's why I asked from our community, and we had a lot of it. I'm confident there's probably a negative comment or two on Facebook. I don't have it, probably out there,
Surely not.
but there's been some support as well, and I do appreciate everybody that at least knows we're getting there. We're going to be better than we were. We'll learn every day, and we'll continue to improve. As I said, some folks will pick up on this really quickly and easily because they're tech savvy. Some folks like me, I'll do it because I got to do it because I got to help my kid. But it's going to be a fight. It's like me trying to do handyman work at home. It's frustrating for me. It's easy for some. That's just life. We get that. So we're going to get there because we're committed to getting there. But again, I say it over and over and over. Anybody says it's not the same if they're not in school. I agree. 5 days a week in school, I miss it. We all miss it. We'll appreciate it more when we get back to it, but we will get through this. I am hopeful that it's going to be better than it was. I'm hopeful that we're headed to a better place. And I'm also thinking that once we get there, it's going to seem sweeter than it was, in the past.
Certainly appreciate 5 days a week going to school a lot more than we ever did. I'm glad you mentioned teachers anxious to get back to the classroom because they miss the kids, they miss teaching, they miss the process, they miss those relationships. But it's been encouraging, exciting for me to see it, like on Facebook, teachers that are developing their Google Classroom, and it's nice
Do
to
their
see
little pictures of
their little
themselves.
avatars, and they all the different things that they've got on there for
If
students.
I do one of those, he's not going to have any gray hair. He's going to look relaxed. I'm going to at least pick one like that, even if I truly don't feel that
Right.
way. I had yesterday, we were talking, and Kim Dukes from the bus garage. Let's just tell you the kind of folks we have. When we're virtual, it's a little tougher for some of them. It doesn't fit as easily on their job, if you're on a bus or whatever. A lot of her bus folks, monitors and drivers, can we be mentors for the kids? We know these kids.
Oh, that's good.
Can we call
That's
them and
real good.
encourage them during the day? Yeah, I think that's a pretty amazing idea.
That's awesome.
Shows where their hearts are. There's a lady, I'm going to tell you her age, so I can't say her name. All right, I've got to do one or the other. But 76 years old, and I help load buses at Central City on Tuesdays. Eric and I go there and just load it with milk and food, and they go do their thing. She's there every day, and I'm like, quit being here. We got this. You can't stop me. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to hand you this box. I'm not going to do it. And she said, then we're just going to look at each other. So anyway, she's handling them all. She's right there in the middle of everything, and it's an inspiration to me. I mean, you've got somebody that is in the high risk category, and doesn't have to be there. We've got it. But I'm riding the bus too. I want to see the kids. And those stories abound. Those people are throughout our district. Yes, we have some that are a little grouchier than others, and some that get more stressed than others. We're human. But that's not unusual to see that. And every Tuesday I see her, and I'm like, surely I can outwork her. I'm handing this box up, and I'm like, I'm like, Eric, don't give her the milk. and she's amazing. And so
That's awesome.
there are so many out there like that. And that is, I need our parents and folks to know, that's why we do this. We want to feed our kids. We want to help take care of their mental health needs. We don't want to be home. We don't want the kids home. Oh, it's so much better when we get them back. I mean, I think as an elementary principal, how many hugs I got in a day, and now you can't hug a kid. The kids keep you young or relatively young. So that's our goal. But I do also want to get another shout out. I got a number yesterday. It's kind of amazing. Joe Cooper, who is our food service director, kind of amazing. She's feeding kids. It doesn't matter. She's happy. I mean, she's a little stressed, but she's happy. Since March 10th or whenever this started, 1987, whenever it was,
Feels a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
We have served over 500,000 meals.
Wow.
Over 500,000 meals. Most of them delivered since March. And if that doesn't say something about what we're trying to do, and I need to mention mention that as well. No matter what schedule we're on, she came in yesterday. Just so you know, whatever you decide, A, B, 5 days, all virtual mixed, we're feeding them. I got it.
Sounds just like her.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, it does.
So we will continue that. Now, I will say it may be a situation where if we're AB and virtual, that it may be where parents have to come in, or they won't come in the school, but they may need to come up for us to give them their food. But I'm not sure we can deliver the and be delivering kids and get all that done. But food will be available for every child that's enrolled in our district every day. And I don't see any end to this. I mean, as far as I know, we'll just serve along. And again, can't say enough about Joe.
We've
Oh, that's
bragged on
amazing.
Joe and food services on several different
Yeah.
episodes, and we've got it's a good little plug for our upcoming feature that people will see in future episodes. We take a pause for the positive, and we were talking about getting that going. And the first one, it seemed like it was more than obvious, was to feature Joe and food services. So look for that on an upcoming episode. But,
Good segue for that, huh?
any chance we can give her a shout out, we're happy.
Yeah.
To do it.
And you know, when I start bragging on folks, because I see the good side, I see what we're trying to do. Sometimes when you're not in the school system, you see what's not working well. And I see what we're trying to do and the effort that's put into it. And when you brag on some, you're always afraid you're leaving some out that are just.
And she's not a
good.
one-woman army by any, though she probably could be. But, don't want to.
She's quite a general, but even like all the principals, so many hours we put into summer, because normally summer you can breathe a little. Normally, in June I can take a week and at least regroup and all. This hasn't let up for us since March 10th, 1987. It's like every day you're planning. All right, I've got to get this, and I got to get this, and the principals have been right there all along. And again, I've said to parents before, if you sit in on a meeting that we had yesterday's meeting, leadership team, which was several of them from the board, and all the principals and other supervisors, and you just sit in and watch, you would be pleased with the conversation we're having. You would see that the heart's in the right place. How are we going to take care of these kids? What about mental health needs? What are we going to do about that? How's the transportation going to work? How are we going to get this out to the parents? How are we going to communicate? What about, the instructional wise? How are we making sure we're doing what we need to do? All those questions go back to the safety and the well-being of the kids. And at the same time, we have to keep that our staff matters too. I can't, we certainly care about our staff, and that plays in. But when the staff and all, the kids are the focus. And what can we do? And it may not look like that when you're looking in and like, geez, you should have done this, should have done this, should have done that. Sometimes you're right, and sometimes there's reasons we didn't, because we are listening to a whole lot of information. So again, that's where you ask for the benefit of the doubt. I know this day and age, benefit of the doubt and support and encouragement nationally and anywhere is not the norm, but we don't have to be the norm. Muhlenberg can be different. The culture here is what we make it. And if we turn on each other, I've said that to our staff, we can get frustrated with each other. Staff gets frustrated with decisions I make. Like I said, if I can't please one woman at home, Gretchen, on decisions, I'm not likely to be able to do it with 700 staff members, 4,300 students, and an entire community. So we get that. So then it goes back to what's the motives of people making decisions.
Right.
If the intent is right, then work with us and give us better ideas. We will adjust.
I think people are realizing these aren't just arbitrary decisions on a whim. There is a thoughtful process that goes into it. Hopefully, they're realizing that.
So, yeah.
The effort is there.
Yeah, and again, the focus being on the kids and their safety and well-being and their education. So, I'm thankful for everything that you and everyone at the board is doing. And it's
Yeah, and as a staff member and a parent, yeah, we're thankful in our household.
Well, I'll say this, doing what we're having to do, I'd rather be doing it in Muhlenberg than any other district or any other place, because as a rule, we have good folks. We have good staff members. Our parents, we have support in the community. Our board is very supportive and informed. I mean, we're talking back and forth almost daily. So as a rule, as difficult as it is, I'd rather go through it where I'm at than anywhere else because of the people that we're dealing with here. So um, there's a lot to be thankful for, even though yes, it's a bit stressful, but there's a lot to be thankful for. So we're going to get through this, and we're going to get through it in a better spot. We've just got to continue to try to figure out how to maximize the situation. Just get the best out of the circumstances we have. And parents, I know childcare is an issue, and I know those things are an issue. We get it, and that does come into play as we try to think about how to cure that. But it plays in with all these other things too. And so that's kind of where we are. We're starting virtual, like I said, for a bit. Just to recap, we'll be getting AB information to our folks soon. Let them be thinking what they want to do. And then the goal would be go to AB September 21st and get to see our kids, get them back in then for the ones who want to come, still have the virtual option. And then as soon as seems reasonable, go back to that 5 days.
More details are available on the district website. We encourage people to go there, and we'll flash that up on the screen.
Carly Embry does a pretty darn good job of putting stuff out there. She's big on the communication and making sure we're saying the same thing so we don't confuse our parents. So yes, as soon as we get something down and that AB thing comes up, we'll get it out. We'll get it on our Facebook page and on our district website and school websites and Twitter or whatever else we have and do. I actually have 2 tweets, I think, career-wise, and I think students were standing by me and did both of them. So
That's 2 more than I have. So
yeah, I still don't. I don't do the
that's
Twitter.
good. Well, Robby, thank you so much for all you're doing and for spending some time with us today to help explain the situation to the folks in our community. And I think it will help ease parents' mind a bit to know what the immediate future holds. Look forward to a future when we can have you back on here and talk about non-COVID related things.
Yeah.
There are, the world around us and the world of the school is still going on outside of this pandemic. But
maybe we can just have you on and talk about sports. That'd be good.
It'll be good. We can talk about the Reds and the Cowboys and the Wildcats and things that I can talk about forever without any preparation, although they stress me too.
that's why we don't have hair. We just pulled it out from a few seasons ago. So, well, we thank you for joining us today and hope you found this informative and look forward to hearing from you. If you have questions or want more information or something you'd like to see on the show, drop us a line, info@felixmartinhall.org. And we look forward to spending more time with you again soon, 6 feet apart.